We recently heard Joel Salatin say that homesteading tends to follow a 6-year cycle. 2 years of honeymoon, 2 years of reality setting in, and then 2 years of burnout, sellout, and get out. And we've definitely seen that progression prove true for others, and finances can play a huge role in that. Counting the costs up front before making that leap into homesteading is a must. And we're heading into our 6th year on our 5-acre homestead here, so we're right in the middle of that last phase of burnout, sellout, and get out. So how are we doing? What does it cost us to run our homestead? Is it worth it? Do we save money? We've tracked every dollar we've spent toward our homestead over the last 5 years, and so here's a breakdown of exactly what it's cost us.
So interestingly enough, you may have seen some of our other budget videos where we go through kind of a very detailed breakdown of what our family spends on all of the household things that we buy in a month or in a year. But when it comes to homesteading, which we track separately from our household budget, we actually don't have a set budget. This isn't to say that we aren't frugal in our spending or purchase things in a calculated way that's within our means, because we absolutely do. And like Jim said, we track every single purchase that we make. And the reason that we haven't put together a dedicated homestead budget is because we found that spending on our homestead can really be all over the map. No 2 years are the same, and it's hard to predict how much we're gonna spend in a year. However, we did put together a rough budget of what those regular monthly or yearly costs are that we spend on our 5-acre homestead. So just to give you a lay of the land here, we have 5 acres, we have a family milk cow, and then between 1 and 2 of her calves at a time. So between 2 and 3 cows total. And then each year we raise between 50 and 60 chickens for meat and maintain a laying flock of about 40 to 50 hens. For our garden, we have a 3 Sisters garden area where we grow the bulk of our storage crops like winter squash and potatoes. And then we also have a kitchen garden for things like tomatoes, carrots, garlic, cabbage, onions, and basil. We have Stella, who is our livestock guardian dog. And then we have some annual business fees and other reoccurring costs every year. And then we would definitely want to account for other supplies or unexpected costs that may come up. Things like tools, fuel, fencing repairs, vet visits, things that you may not have a dedicated budget line for, but that you want to have something there for those unexpected things. So what we can predict our regular monthly costs are going to be to keep everything going here on our homestead is going to be around $560 per month, which comes out to $6,700 annually.
So those are all the ongoing costs for us on our homestead each month and year as we maintain what we have, feed all of our animals, and grow the food that we grow. But what about all the startup costs that we've had over the last 5 years as we've gotten things going? We realized as we went back and totaled all that up, there's been sort of 3 separate phases for us. So year 1 and 2 were our hit the ground running, work like crazy, and get everything going from scratch years. So our first year for us was really more of a half year on our homestead, but we still managed to do quite a bit that year. So we already had Thimble, our family milk cow, and a calf that came with her, so we invested in a lot of portable electronetting fencing up front to get them grazing on our backfield right away. And then we also got a garden going that year, and it was super helpful that actually a farmer friend of ours was kind of closing up his operation, unfortunately, but he sold us his used BCS 2-wheel tractor along with a bunch of other garden tools and supplies that were super helpful for us as we were getting things going. Year 2 then was really a big year for us. We already had our cows up and going, but this year was devoted to chickens and trees. So we built a brooder, got baby chicks, built an 8-foot by 16-foot coop inside our barn for our layers, and then we built a Siskovich chicken tractor for around 25 meat chickens and raised 2 separate batches of those. We also planted around 30 fruit trees in an orchard area, which was a pretty big upfront cost, but something we knew we wanted to get established right away. And then this totally wasn't a necessary purchase for us that year, but we also found an incredible deal on a used livestock trailer that was in great shape locally, and we went for it. So even though it was a more expensive year, we did a ton and we got really good value from the things we invested in.
The next phase was then years 3 and 4. And for us, this was really where we took a deep breath, took a step back, and focused on the systems and the things that we've already created on our homestead. We didn't try to tackle any huge projects or investments during these years. So year 3, the big thing that we did was build a second chicken tractor so that we would be able to raise 2 batches of 25 to 30 meat chickens at one time. And while yes, there was a cost to building that second tractor, this has saved us so much time in being able to raise 2 batches at once that it's been well worth it. We also had a beekeeping venture with some friends that year that involved some investment in supplies, but other than that, our costs were minimal and mostly just those ongoing costs. Year 4, even more so. Costs were pretty minimal for us and we didn't have any major projects or expenses this year. These were also the years that corresponded with us getting our online content creation business off the ground. We had a 4th baby and life was just really full during this time, which I'm sure factored into why we didn't take on any big projects or endeavors on the homestead.
So heading into year 5, which was this past year, 2024 for us, we could have kept things going as is and gotten by fine. But we knew after getting systems established on our homestead over the last couple of years and being able to observe things and see areas that we can improve, we knew that this was a year we wanted to make some investments and improvements to our homestead. A big one was that we kept our eyes out for a smaller used tractor and we searched for months until the perfect option came up at a really good price, and when it did, we just went for it. And then last fall we tackled our big waterline, electrical, and fencing project, which was a big infrastructure upgrade. But after going through a winter now, after those improvements were made, and things like having our jug heated water permanently installed, and fencing that actually keeps our animals in instead of the dilapidated fencing we had prior that was literally falling apart, it was totally worth it. We're currently in year 6 now, and we haven't spent much yet besides our routine expenses, but we are planning to build a mobile chicken coop or an egg mobile to have our laying flock follow behind our cows as they graze in the field. And then our barn is in desperate need of a new roof. So these are some bigger projects or expenses we're forecasting heading into year 6 or 2025.
We share this breakdown because if you're looking for land to start homesteading, it's not just the cost of the property that you have to consider, but it's also these startup costs and ongoing costs that are going to be part of that equation. Chicken coops, garden areas, animals, fencing, tools, and other supplies all have a cost. And so in order to avoid that burnout, sell out, and get out phase a few years in, like Joel Salatin talks about, you'd be wise to consider and have a plan for all those costs up front. Another good thing to consider is finding the right size and scale of your homestead. So a year or 2 in, we realized how thankful we are to have found our 5-acre homestead. We initially had dreams of 20 or more acres, and 5 at the time we bought it kind of felt like we were settling, but we have been able to do everything that we've wanted to do while keeping things pretty simple and low cost. Also, if we would have purchased a 20-acre property, even a foreclosed property that we were looking at, it needed a lot of work. And that 20-acre property was already pushing kind of the high end of our budget, but our 5-acre property was at the low end of our budget, which has given us a lot more wiggle room to invest in our homestead. I honestly can't imagine the stress that we'd be experiencing in needing to work more and make more money to make ends meet if we'd been on that larger property. We actually wrote a blog post a while back about why we think 5 acres is the perfect size for the beginning homesteader. And while yes, things like a tractor or bigger equipment have made tasks easier, it wasn't necessary. We could get by with something like a BCS 2-wheel tractor and doing most everything by hand. More acreage would mean more to manage, and 5 acres has felt like plenty to keep up with enough space to keep dreaming for the future.
So you may have noticed some holes or gaps in our budget, like do we feed our cows anything? And pretty much from May to November, our cows are out on pasture and they get 100% of their food from grazing. So aside from some salt and mineral costs that we give them as a supplement, we don't have any costs a little more than half of the year for feeding our cows. During the winter, we do feed them hay, and we've been super thankful to have some neighbors really close by that cut their own hay and have provided that for us. The first couple of years we were trading fresh milk for hay throughout the year, which pretty much evened out and we didn't need to buy any hay. Those neighbors have since actually gotten their own milk cow now, so now we do buy hay, but we're still able to do some trading for things like watching their farm while they're away and traveling. So when we do need to buy hay from them, we get big round bales for $60 each. We started out with getting small square bales of hay, which can definitely be convenient and they're easy to handle, but we switched to getting large round bales and realized we're able to save hundreds of dollars each year by going that route, and it's much more economical. It's pretty much like buying hay in bulk as opposed to individual servings. Another area we don't spend much in is for medical or veterinary care. Thankfully, we've only had one incident where we had to call a vet out to help Thimble at one point. But besides that, we take a pretty minimal approach, and keeping our animals out on pasture and in good, clean conditions helps keep them healthy year-round.
One of our bigger expenses every year is feeding our chickens. So we're thankful to have a reasonably priced feed store near us, but we know that feed prices are something that can vary pretty widely in cost depending on your location. We did do some searching a couple of years ago and found a really awesome organic grain farmer near us who bags up his own chicken feed mix that was really economical for high quality stuff. Another thing we've realized is that giving our chickens some supplemental protein throughout the year really helps them thrive in different seasons, especially when they're molting in the fall and through the winter when there's less for them to forage. So we buy several big bulk bags of black soldier fly larvae throughout the year and give them a few handfuls each day. But if that's something that you want to save money on, you could also figure out how to grow those yourself. I know plenty of homesteaders do that. Another way we've seen homesteaders keep feed costs down is that if you have a skid steer with pallet forks, you can order a bulk pallet load from a nearby source of chicken feed, and then you're able to save a good amount of money by getting wholesale pricing versus paying retail costs.
A big way for us that we've been able to save costs and keep things minimal over the years is to buy used whenever possible. We got our initial 6 or 7 rolls or sections of Premier One electronetting fencing along with a solar energizer that we found used for $750, which is probably less than half of what it would cost if you bought it new. And then our used Kubota B2630 tractor was a really great deal. It had around 1,000 hours and it came with a couple different implements, and it was an overall really great shape. And it costed around $10,000, which I know is a big expense, but it could have easily been thousands of dollars more with what's comparable out there. But we waited for months for the right thing to come up, and then when it did, we jumped on it because we knew it was the right opportunity. Similarly with our used livestock trailer, it was an investment up front, but when we saw it, we knew it was an awesome deal and we went for it. And to be honest, I haven't seen as good of a deal come up since. It's the perfect size for our small homestead, plus we've been able to lend it out to other small farmers or homesteaders in our area, so it's totally been worth the investment. The thing with buying used is that you need to be okay with taking a slow approach and waiting for the right thing, sometimes even months. But if that's something you can afford to do and you're working on a shoestring budget, it can really pay out. Plus, you get to avoid sales tax, which on those bigger purchases especially, that can be a huge cost savings.
As we've progressed through the years, one of the things that we continually realize is how time is really our most precious and valuable resource. Early on, when we were working low-paying jobs and finances were really tight, we needed to keep things as low cost as possible. The last couple of years, we're in a little bit of a different position where we've gotten our home business off the ground and are seeing regular income from that. So that's really freed us up to consider some of those bigger expenses like a tractor or tackling major projects. But at the same time, if we really needed to continue on without a tractor or without doing some of the bigger upgrades and improvements that we're considering now, we could figure it out and make it all work. Besides those base ongoing costs that we have each year, we could keep things as simple and basic as possible to keep our spending down if we needed to. But as we've already seen, things like having a tractor and having the right tool for the job and improving fencing really do help save us time and improve our lives and overall homesteading experience. It's just a matter of balancing where you're at with your budget and finances and weighing the costs of time alongside living within your means. Another thing to note that's a big reason why we've always tracked our farming and homesteading expenses separate from our personal and household expenses is because every year when we're doing our taxes, we file a Schedule F for our farm. And so we're able to claim all of these expenses that then can help reduce our total taxable income.
And really quick, while we're on the topic of taxes, if you use an accounting software thing like TurboTax, we did that for years. And once we started filing a Schedule F, I got so fed up with them because then they'd make you upgrade to like the highest package and it was super expensive. And then I found this thing called Free Tax USA. I think it's freetaxusa.com. And it was seriously, it's like $30 to file your taxes. They include the Schedule F. You don't have to pay extra for it. And it was like an awesome experience overall. So you might want to check that out. So back to the question of, do we save money homesteading? So we put together some rough numbers of what it would cost us to go out and buy a comparable amount of food and comparable quality of food to what we grow here on our homestead. So just looking at those numbers, this includes consuming about 8 to 10 gallons of milk a week that we use for drinking, making cheese, butter, yogurt, and other things. A half to a whole cow for the freezer for the year, eating at least a dozen eggs a day as a family, buying a pasture-raised chicken for every week of the year, and then buying fresh, locally grown organic produce. This was pretty rough, but the cost to purchase these things came in at least double the annual ongoing cost we spend on our homestead. So in that example, I think it's easy to make a case that yes, it's totally worth it. There are a couple things that this does not consider. One is all of the startup costs and bigger project costs, and obviously this could increase the amount you're spending on your homestead significantly. Two is the excess from what we grow that we're able to trade or sell. So we've been able to trade farm goods we have for things like hay, fresh baked sourdough bread, or pork products from others locally. And then when we have extra eggs, we can also sell a few dozen a week, helping to offset feed costs. And the third thing is time, and this is really a huge one, because obviously if we were to go back and figure out how much time and hours we're actually putting into growing the amount of food that we do on our homestead over the course of a year, and then we assigned a reasonable hourly wage to that, it would be so hard to make sense of that number and justify that cost. But we've realized we really do love this homesteading lifestyle. It's hard work, which we don't necessarily see as a bad thing, but it's a joy and privilege to be able to tend the land and care for animals. It becomes your hobby and entertainment and food source all wrapped up in one. And so for us, that time and cost to grow our own food and feed our family year-round from our land is always worth it.